The ship was bigger than anything Una Park had ever seen. It floated above Earth like a small moon. The metal was silver and smooth. Lights blinked along its sides, like stars that had fallen from the sky and decided to stay. Una stood in a long line with hundreds of our humans. They were all waiting to board the transport shuttle. Some of them were soldiers. Some were scientists. Some were just brave people who wanted to prove that humans were worthy of respect in the galaxy. The aliens had come to Earth 3 years ago. They called themselves the Valori. They were tall and blue. They had 4 arms and faces that showed no emotion. Their eyes were large and dark like deep water. When they spoke, their voices sounded like music mixed with thunder. The Valori were not enemies. But they were not friends either. They were teachers. They ran the greatest military training program in the galaxy. Species from 100 different worlds sent their best warriors to learn from the Valori. Those who passed the training became elite soldiers. They were respected everywhere. Humans had sent candidates before. None of them had ever finished the training. The Valori said that humans were too weak, too emotional, too easy to break. Una was going to change that. She was not the biggest person in line. In fact, she was one of the smallest. She stood only 5'2". Her body was thin but strong. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her face was calm and her eyes were steady. The man next to her was much bigger. His name was Do-Won Kim. He had been a soldier in the Special Forces for 10 years. His arms were thick with muscle and his chest was wide. He looked at Una and smiled. "You nervous?" he asked. Una shook her head. "No," Do-Won laughed. "You should be. I heard the last group of humans only lasted 2 weeks. The Valori sent them home crying." "I heard the same thing," Una said. "But I am not them." Do-Won studied her face. There was something different about this woman. She was small, yes, but there was a quiet strength in her eyes. It was the kind of strength that did not need to shout or show off. It simply existed, like a mountain that did not care about the wind. "What did you do before this?" Do-Won asked. "I was a hostage negotiator," Una said, "in Neo-Sol." Do-Won's eyebrows went up. Neo-Sol was one of the most dangerous cities on Earth. Crime and violence filled its streets. Hostage situations happened every week. The negotiators who worked there saw terrible things. They had to stay calm while people screamed and died around them. "How long?" Do-Won asked. 6 years, Una said. Do-Won nodded slowly. He understood now. This woman had spent 6 years talking to killers and terrorists. She had learned to control her fear. She had learned to be still when everything around her was chaos. Maybe she had a chance after all. The transport shuttle arrived. Its doors opened with a soft hiss. A Valori officer stood inside. He was even taller than the others. His blue skin was darker, almost purple. Gold marks decorated his face. "Enter," he said. His voice was cold. "Sit. Do not speak." The humans walked into the shuttle in silence. The seats were hard and uncomfortable. There were no windows. The lights were dim. Una sat down and closed her eyes. She began to breathe slowly and deeply. She was preparing her mind for what was coming. The journey to the training ship took 4 hours. Nobody spoke. Some of the humans looked scared. Others looked angry. A few looked sick. The shuttle shook and rumbled as it moved through space. When they finally arrived, the doors opened to reveal a massive chamber. The walls were made of dark chrome. The ceiling was so high that Una could not see the top. Hundreds of humans stood in lines on the floor. Valori officers walked between them like giants moving through a field of grass. A voice boomed through the chamber. It came from everywhere at once. "Welcome to the training vessel Horizon's Edge. I am Commander Throw. I am your lead instructor. For the next several weeks, you will be tested. Your body will be tested. Your mind will be tested. Your spirit will be tested. Most of you will fail. Yuna looked up. She saw a Valori standing on a high platform. He was the tallest one she had seen. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His dark eyes scanned the crowd like a hunter looking at prey. In the history of this program, Thrall continued, no human has ever completed the training. Your species is considered weak, fragile, easy to break. You are here to prove that wrong, or to prove that we are right. Some of the humans shifted nervously. A few whispered to each other. But Yuna remained still. Her face showed nothing. Her body was relaxed. She simply listened. Commander Thrall noticed her. Even from his high platform, he could see this small woman standing perfectly still among the nervous crowd. She was like a stone in a river of movement. He made a mental note to watch her. Training begins now, Thrall announced. Follow the officers to your quarters. Rest while you can. Tomorrow we see what you are made of. The first 3 weeks were brutal. Every day brought new challenges. The candidates had to run for hours without stopping. They had to climb walls that seemed impossible. They had to fight against training robots that felt no pain and never got tired. Every day, more humans failed. Some were injured. Some gave up. Some were sent home by the Valori because they were not good enough. Yuna survived every test. She was not the fastest runner. She was not the strongest climber. She was not the best fighter. But she never stopped. She never complained. She never showed fear. When other candidates screamed in frustration, Yuna stayed quiet. When others cried from exhaustion, Yuna kept moving. When others argued with the instructors, Yuna simply nodded and did what she was told. Daohan watched her with growing respect. He was stronger than her. He was faster than her. But there was something about Yuna that he could not match. She had a calm center that nothing could touch. After 3 weeks, only 12 humans remained. 200 had started. 188 had failed or been sent home. The 12 survivors stood in the chrome chamber again. Commander Thrall looked down at them from his platform. His face was still cold, but there was something new in his eyes. It might have been curiosity. You have survived the physical trials, he said. But the body is only the beginning. Tomorrow begins the final phase, mental endurance. Most species fail within hours. Humans have never lasted more than 2 days. Dohan leaned toward Yuna. Mental endurance? What does that mean? It means they will try to break our minds, Yuna said softly. They will use fear and loneliness and confusion. They will attack everything we believe about ourselves. Can you handle that? Dohan asked. Yuna turned to look at him. For the first time, she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. I have been waiting for this part, she said. Commander Thrall watched the small human woman from his platform. She was talking to one of the other candidates. She did not look worried. She did not look scared. She looked almost eager. Thrall felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt uncertain. He had trained thousands of warriors from dozens of species. He knew how to break minds. He knew how to find weakness and exploit it. But this human was different. She moved through the physical trials without joy or fear. She endured pain without complaint. She faced challenges without hesitation. What was her secret? What made her so calm? He would find out tomorrow. The mental trials would reveal everything. No one could hide from the void. No one could stay strong when their own mind became their enemy. Commander, Thrall turned and walked away. Tomorrow would be interesting. Yuna watched him go. She knew what was coming. She had heard stories about the Valori mental trials. They called it the void. It was a place of absolute emptiness. No light. No sound. No sense of time or space. Most beings went mad within hours. Their minds could not handle the nothingness. They needed something to hold on to, something to connect them to reality. When that was taken away, they fell apart. But Yuna had learned a different way. In her years as a negotiator, she had discovered that the mind could be trained like a muscle. Fear could be observed without being felt. Loneliness could be accepted without being suffered. Silence could become a friend instead of an enemy. She looked at the other 11 humans. They were all strong in their own ways. Dalman with his military training. HFY, a former rescue diver who had spent hours alone in dark water. Tai Wubik, a martial artist who had meditated for years. They had survived the physical trials. But Yuna knew that what was coming would be harder than anything they had faced. The body could be pushed beyond its limits. The mind was more fragile. She closed her eyes and began to breathe, in and out. Slow and steady, she found the quiet place inside herself. The place where nothing could reach her. The place where she was truly free. Tomorrow, she would need that place more than ever. The morning came without warning. There were no windows on the training ship. There was no sun to rise. Only the cold voice of the announcement system telling them to wake up. Yuna opened her eyes. She had been dreaming about home. About the streets of Neo Seoul. About the small apartment where her younger brother Jinwoo still lived. She pushed the dream away and stood up. The 12 humans gathered in a small room. The walls were white. The floor was white. The ceiling was white. Everything was clean and empty. It felt like being inside a cloud. Commander Thrall entered the room. His forearms hung at his sides. His dark eyes moved from face to face. He was looking for something. Fear maybe. Or weakness. Today you enter the void, he said. His voice was flat. It is a test that most species cannot pass. Your minds will be placed in complete isolation. No light, no sound, no touch, no smell. Nothing but your own thoughts. A young man named Taiwu raised his hand. How long does the test last? Commander Thrall looked at him. The test ends when you surrender. Or when we decide it ends. There is no time limit. What if we never surrender? Another candidate asked. Her name was Jie. She was tall and lean. Her eyes were sharp and clever. No one has ever refused to surrender, Thrall said. The longest anyone has lasted is 5 days. That was a being from the planet Varos. They are known for their mental strength. Most species break within hours. And humans? Dohwan asked. Humans have never lasted more than 2 days, Thrall said. There was no judgment in his voice. He was simply stating a fact. Like saying that water is wet or fire is hot. Your species is emotional. You depend on connection. Isolation destroys you quickly. Yuna said nothing. She stood in the back of the group. Her hands were relaxed at her sides. Her face was calm. She was listening, but she was also preparing. She was building walls inside her mind. Strong walls that nothing could break. The Valori led them down a long hallway. The walls here were dark chrome. The lights were dim. Their footsteps echoed like drums in the silence. They came to a large room filled with pods. The pods were shaped like eggs. They stood in rows, smooth and white. Each one had a small door and a tiny window. These are your isolation chambers, Thrall explained. Once inside, you will experience complete sensory deprivation. Your body will float in warm liquid. You will see nothing, hear nothing, feel nothing. Your mind will be alone with itself. A Valori assistant named Velis approached each human. He attached small sensors to their heads and chests. These would monitor their vital signs during the test. When you can no longer endure, Thrall continued, you will think the word surrender. The sensors will detect this thought and the test will end for you. You will be removed from the chamber and disqualified from further training. Yuna stepped toward her pod. She looked at it without fear. It was just a machine. Just a room. The real test was not inside the pod. The real test was inside her own head. Doan walked beside her. His face was serious. "See you on the other side," he said. "Yes," Yuna replied. "You will." She climbed into the pod. The liquid was warm and thick. It held her body like gentle hands. The door closed above her. The last thing she saw was Doan's face looking down at her, with concern. Then everything went dark. The darkness was complete. Yuna could not see her own hand in front of her face. She could not hear anything except the sound of her own heart beating. She could not feel the edges of the pod or the liquid around her. She was floating in nothing. Most people would panic at this moment. The human brain does not like emptiness. It needs input. It needs stimulation. When there is nothing to see or hear, the brain starts to create its own reality. It starts to hallucinate. It starts to break. But Yuna had trained for this. Not in a pod, but in the streets of Neo-Sol. In dark rooms with killers. In long hours of waiting while lives hung in the balance, she had learned to sit with emptiness. She had learned to make friends with silence. She had learned that the mind was like a wild animal. If you fought it, it would fight back. But if you accepted it, it would calm down. She began to breathe. In and out. Slow and steady. She counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. She did not try to see. She did not try to hear. She simply existed. She was nothing but awareness itself. A point of light in an endless darkness. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Yuna could not tell. Time had no meaning in the void. In the monitoring room, Commander Thrall watched the screens. 12 human life signs blinked on the displays. Heart rates, brain waves, stress hormones. All the information he needed to know how each candidate was doing. After 3 hours, the first surrender came. A young man named Hyunwoo. His heart rate had been climbing for an hour. His brain waves showed panic. Then the surrender signal flashed on the screen. The Valori removed him from his pod. He was shaking and crying. He could not speak. They wrapped him in a blanket and took him to the medical bay. After 6 hours, 2 more surrendered. Their minds could not handle the emptiness. They had tried to fight it and lost. After 12 hours, another 2 gave up. Then, 1 more after 15 hours. By the end of the first day, 6 humans remained. Commander Thrall looked at the screens with interest. The 6 survivors were showing different patterns. Some had high stress levels, but strong willpower. They were fighting the emptiness with everything they had. But one pattern was different. One human showed almost no stress at all. Her heart rate was slow and steady. Her brain waves were calm and rhythmic. Her stress hormones were actually lower than when she had entered the pod. It was the small woman. Yuna Park, is the equipment working correctly? Thrall asked his assistant Velis. Velis checked the sensors. Yes, Commander. Everything is functioning properly. Then how is she so calm? Velis had no answer. In all his years of monitoring candidates, he had never seen readings like this. It was as if the woman was sleeping peacefully instead of enduring complete isolation. Inside her pod, Yuna had found her quiet place. She was not fighting the darkness. She was not trying to escape the emptiness. She was simply being. Her mind drifted like a leaf on water. Thoughts came and went. Memories floated past like clouds. She did not hold on to them. She did not push them away. She just watched. She thought about her brother Jinwoo. He was 20 years old now. A student at the university in Neo-Sol. He wanted to be a doctor. He was kind and gentle. Nothing like the world they had grown up in. She thought about her parents. They had died when she was 12. A gang war in the streets. Wrong place, wrong time. She had raised Jinwoo herself. She had protected him from the darkness of the city. She thought about the hostages she had saved, the families she had reunited, the lives she had pulled back from the edge of death. Those memories were good. They were warm. She thought about the ones she had failed, the hostages who had died, the negotiations that had gone wrong. Those memories were cold. They were heavy. But she did not run from them. She accepted them as part of who she was. The second day began. Or ended. Yuna could not tell. Time was meaningless. 2 more humans surrendered. The darkness had become too much. Their minds had started to create monsters. Voices that were not there. Faces in the emptiness. Fear without reason. Now only 4 remained. Yuna, Dohwan, Jie, Taiwu. Commander Thrall studied the screens. Dohwan was struggling. His stress levels were high. His brain waves showed constant activity. He was fighting hard, but the fight was costing him. Jie was doing better. Her years of diving in dark water had prepared her for isolation. But even she was showing signs of strain. Taiwu was using meditation techniques. His brain waves were steady but focused. He was holding on but barely. And then there was Yuna. Her readings had not changed since the first hour. She was like a stone at the bottom of a river. The water moved around her, but she did not move. How is this possible? Thrall whispered to himself. Velis looked at the commander. In 30 years of service, he had never seen Thrall confused. The commander always knew everything. He always had answers. Perhaps humans are more diverse than we thought, Velis suggested. Perhaps some of them are different. Thrall shook his head slowly. I have studied humans for decades. I know their strengths and weaknesses. They are social creatures. They need connection. Isolation destroys them, and yet this one remains calm. Yes, Thrall said. And I want to know why. Inside her pod, Yuna smiled in the darkness. She could not see. She could not hear. But she could feel something. A strange sense of victory. Not over the Valori. Not over the test. But over her own mind. All her life, she had been afraid of emptiness. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of the silence inside her own head. She had filled her days with work and duty. She had never stopped moving. Never stopped doing. But here, in the void, she had finally stopped. And she had found something unexpected. Peace. The emptiness was not her enemy. It was a mirror. It showed her exactly who she was. Not her job. Not her duties. Not her role in the world. Just her. Just Yuna. And Yuna was enough. The hours continued to pass. The third day began. What is she? Velis asked quietly. Thrall finally spoke. His voice was different now, softer, almost respectful. She is human, he said. I think we have been underestimating her species for a very long time. He turned and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Velis asked. To meet her, Thrall said. I want to look into her eyes. I want to understand how a creature so small can have a spirit so large. He stopped at the door and looked back at the screens. Yuna's life signs blinked steadily, calm, peaceful, unbroken. Perhaps, Thrall said slowly, the measure of strength is not how hard you can fight. Perhaps it is how deeply you can feel and still choose to continue. He walked out of the room, leaving Velis alone with the steady beeping of monitors and the wonder of watching a human do the impossible. 7 days. Yuna had been inside the void for 7 days. 168 hours of complete isolation. 168 hours of psychological attacks. 168 hours of visions, designed to destroy her mind. She had not surrendered. The news had spread through the training ship, like fire through dry grass. The Valori whispered in the corridors. They gathered around the monitoring screens. They watched Yuna's life signs with a mixture of disbelief and fear that no candidate had ever lasted this long. The previous record was 5 days, held by a warrior from a species known for their mental fortitude. They were beings of pure logic, with brains like computers. They felt no emotion. They had no attachments, but Yuna was different. She was a human, a creature of flesh and feeling, a being who loved and feared and hoped. She should have broken days ago that Commander Thrall had not slept since day 4. He sat in the monitoring room, watching the screens, trying to understand. His officers came and went. They brought him food and water. He barely touched them. "The council wants to speak with you," Velis said quietly. Thrall did not look away from the screens. "Tell them I am busy." "Commander, they are demanding an explanation. They want to know why the test is still running. They are concerned about the implications." "The implications?" Thrall finally turned to face his assistant. "What implications?" Velis hesitated. "If a human can pass our tests, if a human can surpass all other species, it changes everything. It means we were wrong about them. It means we might be wrong about other things too." Thrall stood up slowly. His forearms hung at his sides. His dark eyes were tired, but still sharp. "Tell the council I will speak with them soon. But first, I must speak with her." He walked to the chamber where the pods stood in rows. 11 of them were empty now. The 11 human candidates who had surrendered. Only one pod was still active. Only one window still showed the dim light of an occupied chamber. Thrall walked to the pod and looked through the window. He could see Yuna floating in the thick liquid. Her eyes were closed. Her face was peaceful. She looked like she was dreaming pleasant dreams. He activated the communication system. His voice echoed inside the pod. "Yuna Park, can you hear me?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Yuna's eyes opened. She looked up at the tiny window. She could not see Thrall through the one-way glass, but she knew someone was there. "I can hear you," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. There was no fear in it, no desperation, just quiet acceptance. "You have been in the void for 7 days," Thrall said. "You have broken every record in our history. You can't stop now. You have proven yourself." Yuna was silent for a moment. Then she spoke. "With respect, Commander, I am not doing this to prove anything to you." Thrall felt something strange. It took him a moment to recognize it. Curiosity. Real burning curiosity. He had not felt this way in decades. "Then why?" he asked. "Why do you continue when you have already won?" "Because winning was never the point," Yuna said. "The point was to understand myself, to face my fears, to find out who I am when everything is taken away." "And what did you find?" Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible through the thick liquid. But it was real. "I found peace," she said. "I found that I am not my fears. I am not my failures. I am not my attachments. I am something deeper, something that cannot be touched by visions or lies or emptiness." Thrall was quiet for a long time. He had trained warriors for 300 years. He had seen strength in many forms. Physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength. But he had never seen anything like this. "You could have surrendered on day 1, he said finally. "You could have left this pod at any moment. But you chose to stay. Why?" "Because leaving would have been running away," Yuna said. "And I spent too many years running. Running from my past. Running from my pain. Running from the silence inside my own head. This test gave me the chance to stop running, to finally sit with myself and accept everything I am." Thrall nodded slowly, even though Yuna could not see him. He understood now. This human was not strong because she could endure pain. She was strong because she had stopped fighting. Most beings spent their lives at war with themselves. They fought against their fears. They pushed away their pain. They ran from their memories. And that constant fighting exhausted them. When the real test came, they had nothing left. But Yuna had made peace with herself. She had accepted her fears, her failures, her pain. She had stopped fighting and started understanding. And that understanding had made her unbreakable. "I am opening your pod," Thrall said. "The test is over." "I did not surrender," Yuna said. "No," Thrall agreed. "You did not. The test is over because you have nothing left to prove. And because we have nothing left to test." The pod door opened slowly. Light flooded in. Real light. The first light Yuna had seen in 7 days. She climbed out of the pod carefully. Her muscles were weak from floating for so long. Her eyes hurt from the brightness. But she stood straight. She did not waver. Commander Thrall stood before her. He was taller than she remembered. His blue skin seemed darker in the light. His forearms were crossed over his chest, but his eyes were different. Before, they had been cold and calculating. Now, they were filled with something new. Something that looked almost like respect. "How do you feel?" he asked. Yuna thought about the question. She thought about the darkness, the visions, the attacks on her mind, the fake death of her brother, the voices telling her she was worthless, the emptiness that had surrounded her for 7 days. "I feel grateful," she said. Thrall raised an eyebrow. "Grateful? For what?" "For the opportunity to face myself. For the chance to find out who I am when everything is stripped away. Most people never get that chance. They live their whole lives surrounded by noise and activity. They never sit in silence long enough to hear their own thoughts." She looked at the empty pods around her. The pods where her fellow humans had struggled and suffered and eventually surrendered. "I am also grateful for them," she said. "For the others who tried. They may have surrendered, but they were brave enough to enter the void. They faced their fears even knowing they might fail. That takes courage." Thrall was quiet for a moment. Then he did something he had not done in many years. He bowed. It was a small bow. Just a slight lowering of his head. But it meant something. Among the Valori, a bow was a sign of deep respect. It was given only to those who had truly earned it. "In 300 years of training," Thrall said, "I have never met anyone like you. You have taught me something today." "What did I teach you?" Yuna asked. "That strength is not about fighting. It is about accepting. That courage is not about feeling no fear. It is about feeling fear and continuing anyway. That the greatest warriors are not those who defeat their enemies. They are those who defeat themselves." Yuna nodded slowly. She understood. She had learned the same lessons in the streets of Neo-Sol. In dark rooms with killers. In long hours of waiting for hostages to live or die. "May I ask you something, Commander?" She said. "Yes. Why did you create this test? Why do you put candidates through so much suffering?" Thrall turned and walked toward the door. Yuna followed him. They walked out of the pod chamber and into a long corridor. Through the windows, she could see stars. Millions of stars, burning bright against the darkness of space. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," Thrall said. "War, disease, disaster. Beings face terrible things every day. Our warriors must be prepared to face anything. They must be unbreakable. And the best way to find unbreakable warriors is to try to break them?" Yuna asked. "Yes. If they break in training, they will break in battle. If they survive training, they have a chance to survive anything." They came to a large window. The view was beautiful. A blue planet floated in the distance. It looked like Earth, but it was not. It was some other world. Some other home for some other species.